not working? You can unplug mine if you. Good evening. I appreciate you all waiting. I recognize we're a couple minutes behind, but we've got new things, and that, is always takes a minute. I don't know why that's happening. I would like to call this meeting to order. Mr. Lotzenheiser, may I have roll call, please?
President Wade, please let the record show that all members are here and present for our work study tonight.
Thank you. Please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
I'm going to go with Ms. Jarman on that, but you guys were at the exact same time. Also, I have no idea. I apologize for it's delightful. That would be Ms. Jarman seconding. Oh. You know what it did? Look at us. So fun facts, I'm assuming I still in this process say all those in favor, and we just do it here? I would say please submit your vote. Okay, great. Please submit our vote, folks. Oh, is it up there? Wow, look at this. Sorry, you were holding out on me. I appreciate that. So the motion passes 5-0. Upcoming events, Mr. Lotzenheiser.
For the superintendent's report, it's very short today. We just have upcoming events. As again, this is a work study, which is why we have no celebrations, Higley happenings, or recognitions from schools. So you can see Monday, January 19th is MLK Day, so we are off from school that day. We do have a superintendent and cabinet and governing board visit to Centennial we're excited about on Thursday, January 22nd. Our next board meeting is Tuesday, January 27th, and then we're starting the kindergarten roundup. We know how important that is to get all of the prospective kindergartners ready to join our elementary schools on January 29th at 5:30 p.m. And that concludes the upcoming events and the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Lotzenheiser. This brings us up to board organization. We will now accept nominations for governing board president for the 2026 year.
Madam President, I would like to nominate you for board president.
I mean, I will do it again if that is what that asking is and whatever it is that we decide. Does anybody else have anything else or anybody else they would like to nominate?
I do. I'd like to read a statement. As I enter my 4th year on this board, I continue to take seriously the responsibilities entrusted in me by our voters, our students, and our community. From the beginning, I have focused my work on transparency and accountability and on ensuring that the board decisions are grounded in clear and accurate information. I have consistently raised questions related to curriculum, finances, and district operations to help clarify issues before decisions are made and to ensure that the public has clear understanding of board actions. I have advocated for responsible budgeting that prioritizes classrooms and teachers while remaining financially sustainable. I have also raised legal and compliance considerations when relevant, with the goal of ensuring that we avoid unnecessary risk. That work hasn't always been easy or popular, but it has always been grounded in doing what is right for our students and for the district as a whole. I have maintained full attendance at board meetings, study sessions, and I do my best to attend as many school and community events as possible to stay connected to our campuses, community leaders, and the students and families we serve. I also work to maintain an open and honest communication with the superintendent and bring up any concerns that I might have or that the community brings to me. And I take that responsibility seriously. Excuse me. As we consider board leadership, I believe it's important to set personal politics aside and focus on fairness and opportunity over time. Leadership roles should be accessible to all board members during their service, and a healthy board benefits from a shared responsibility and perspective. I believe that perspective is worth considering as part of this decision as I enter my 4th year. In considering fairness over time, it is also relevant that other board members will each have 2 years remaining in their term after this year, allowing additional opportunities for leadership service going forward. Every board member who serves is willing to do the work, lead professionally, and uphold the responsibilities of governance should have the opportunity to serve in this role. Leadership development, perspective, and fairness matter in a functioning board. Serving as board president would mean carrying out the responsibilities of the role with consistency and strong focus on process, facilitating meetings, ensuring procedures are followed, and maintaining respectful and clear governance with a focus on students and outcomes. For those reasons, I nominate myself for board president and respectfully ask for your consideration. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Drummond.
I would like to, I'm feeling like board member Glover might have some good insights, some ideas. He's very approachable. He knows some class insight, etc. And he might be a good middle ground to enact kind of some ideas and kind of find the middle road. But he's also workable. He's able to work, mend bridges, keep the communication going, etc. So I want to lean, that's my feeling tonight.
President Wade, Board Member Glover, is that something that you?
Yeah, I can't thank you. That's very kind of you, Ms. Jarman. I have a really hard time multitasking, and I don't think I would be a very good board president, so I would decline at this time. Thank you, though.
Do we have anything else that anybody desires to express? We have 2 nominations. We can't proceed without a second. Oh. To be clear, totally fine. I just am going off past. So I make this motion for the first, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go, the first one that was said? We'll do me, sure, great. So I motion for myself, Amanda Wade, to be board president. I don't enjoy that.
Second.
So do we vote on here? Please indicate your vote, folks. So that motion carries 3-2. This brings us to, yeah, I know. I was seeing if I have to do anything, and it does not because we're here. Okay. Indeed. This brings us to 4.2. We will now accept nominations for governing board vice president. I would like to make a nomination if possible, but I'm willing to open the floor to other folks as well if somebody would like to go first. In that, I would like to nominate you, Board Member Jarman, and part of the reason that I think that is I feel like you've done a lot to kind of keep involved and keep doing all of those things, and you're here at all of the meetings, and so that's where I would put my nomination at the present moment in time. Yeah, anybody else?
I would like to nominate myself.
Do you need a second at this time, Madam President, for either candidate? Okay. Okay.
I guess maybe before we vote, considering I haven't done anything other than what I just did, Ms. Jarman, is this a position that you would like before I do those types of things?
I'm very frank and honest and humble. I appreciate that. And I have so much gratitude for this district. And I know that when I apply myself, I'm able to get stuff done, but I am very honest and frank with people. I'm not perfect. And so I really appreciate this. And yeah, I can do it. I appreciate you guys.
Board Member Jarman, as long as President Wade shows up too, there's not a whole ton. As long as she shows up to the meetings, there's not a whole ton you have to do as the vice president either.
I've
so.
missed a meeting, if that makes you feel any better.
It's
It
not
was the
a
first
huge
year.
responsibility. So.
You take notes during the executive session, fun facts, because I definitely don't want to do that. Well, then I will motion for the first name, and then depending on that, motion for the second name. I motion for Board Member Sarah Jarman to be Board Vice President.
Second.
Okay, we're going to vote on here. We go. You don't even have to move the boxes. They go away for you. Ms. Zimmerman, while that vote is going, do you want me to record anything in here, or because it's there, you care less about these? Excellent. Okay. So that motion carries 4-1 as well, which means you all will need to switch seats. Can we maybe take like a 2-minute break to switch seats? Is that, we're going to recess for 2 minutes, everybody. Okay. This brings us to, that was not a full 2 minutes, everybody. I apologize.
Well, may I congratulate our new president and vice president and thank our outgoing vice president for her service?
Yes, indeed. I appreciate it. This brings us to consent agenda items. I motion to approve consent agenda items 5.1 through 5.11.
Second.
That'd be Ms. Jarman seconding. Okay, please submit your vote. Look at that, look at that. Bam. Man, that's impressive. Okay, motion carries 5-0. We would like to thank Travis Boyer, Joe Ercoli, I hope I said that correct. I did not see this ahead of time to ask, I apologize. Power Ranch PTO, an anonymous donor for their generous donations to the district. All right, great. All right. Up first, we have 6.1 information items. We are looking at the 2026-2027 budget options. Mr. Lotzenheiser.
President Wade, members of the board, tonight we're coming back to continue a discussion we started on January 9th in terms of what we're looking for at the M&O budget for the 26-27 school year. And so the goal of tonight, like I said on December 9th, was to come back and provide different options for you to consider. And then in 2 weeks, we'll come back and ask for the board to make a decision about which one of the options they would like to select. And so while I go through this presentation, please feel free to ask questions during the middle of it. I know that we will be having individual meetings as well within the next 2 weeks with governing board members for any clarity that they might look for as well. And so just a reminder, our process started back in 2025. In last spring, we did a community input via a survey. We submitted a survey and got in feedback from our community staff also via a survey, as well as we have a meet and confer process that we do with the association where we talk about different ideas, what the budgeting looks like. We have our administrative group is providing constant feedback for us via a lot of meetings and individual meetings as we look for input again on this budget process. And like I said, on December 9th, what was really important, I think, for our community was to listen to you governing board members as you provided your priorities on what it looked like moving forward. So tonight, we're going to talk about 3 different options. I'm going to talk through those with you. And then we're going to ask for board action at the January 27th governing board meeting. So this is just a very similar slide to what I showed on December 9th. And again, we're facing some different reductions that we need to do out of our M&O budget based upon 2 different things. I want to be very clear that there are 2 different ways that we're looking at. The first part is the $3 million, that's enrollment loss. That is not due to the override at all or any reductions by the override. That's because we have less students and we're planning on less students. And so when we do that, we have to reduce our budget by the amount. All of these are approximate because every kid's a little bit different, but these are all approximate amounts that we're going to do. The reason we have $3 million is if we have a consistent enrollment reduction over the next 3 years, it would be $3 million each year. The green bar represented on the picture represents the elimination of the different percentages of the override. Currently, in this current year, we would need to eliminate an additional $4.8 million out of the budget, whereas next year would be $4.2 million out of the budget, because next year would be the true year that we receive 0 monies due to an override, because that has been phased out over the last 3 years. We talked about carry forward, and that's been a big discussion that's happened over the last multiple years. The carry forward is our savings account, basically. What we don't spend, we carry forward. At the last meeting, I presented a number around 17 million, but I said we're looking at ways as a district that we can put more money into our carry forward, knowing that our carry forward can help sustain us while we do reductions over time due to the loss of enrollment and the override. And so we've been able to adjust the estimated amount of carry forward. It will be about $19 million. Additionally, we have classroom site fund monies that are limited monies that we can spend on only those certified employees that are eligible for the classroom site fund. We have a carry forward of about $15 million in that account. And then, and I'll just mention it, we always understand that the AEL, the aggregate expenditure limit, that's nothing that we can decide. That comes from the state legislator. It has not been enacted the last couple of years. If it were to be enacted or enforced, we would have to eliminate $15.5 million. That's the estimation directly from our M&O account as soon as that would go into effect. I'm not going to bring that up anymore. I know Mrs. Rushkamp will mention it when she does her presentation next, just because that's always out there, but it's not anything that we have any control over. That's coming from the state legislature. At our last meeting, we had different themes from the discussion, and I want to thank our governing board for sharing their priorities publicly with everyone so that we know, and it allowed us as a cabinet and myself as the superintendent to develop these options. But themes that we heard from that discussion were to keep elementary specials for our students. We know that those had come up when we talked about the override, but we have PE, art, music, media, band, orchestra for our elementary students, providing those elementary specials. We heard from members of the board do not affect current site programs, specifically DLI programs and the Mandarin DLI program. As we know, that had come from a survey when we surveyed the community last spring. But the general theme from the governing board was please don't affect that. At the same time, they said, you said look at raises for all employees or increases in compensation. Last year, we did not do any compensation increases out of the M&O fund for any of our employees. And so to look at that. Continue to make sure we're fiscally responsible. So making sure, to me, that is the long-term plan, not just a one-year stopgap. And to spend down the carry forward to help achieve these priorities, that was very important for us to know, and we can provide these options to you. So using these priorities, we created the following options. Option number one is a $3 million reduction. The reason it's $3 million, this would be basically covering what would be happening due to enrollment loss. Remember, with less students mean we need less teachers, and we have some other ways that we need less supports when we have those. And so if you'll take a look at the positions up there between teacher and teacher support, 29 positions, and then non-teachers, which would be admin or administrative support, which would be 6 different positions. So basically, the idea of this one is we're not going into the loss of the override. We would assume the loss of the override out of the carry forward. And so it would be the smallest number of reductions. We have to right size. So with less kids, we have to have less teachers. And I think that's an important thing. When we take a look at the raises, I'm going to use this as an example, okay, of what raises could look like. We brought forward what 2% looked like within different categories, and I want to walk through each one of these. The first one with the teacher, it's really anyone who's classroom site fund eligible. It's not just teachers. There's other categories that are in there that receive our classroom site fund. If we look at a 2% raise, this would come out of the classroom site fund carry forward, and that would be about $900,000 to do 2%. I know some people have thought and said, what does it look like if it's 3%? 3% would be $1.35 million. I just cut the 900,000 in half and added half more to it. So that'd be 1.35%. These aren't set in stone, but these are examples of what the governing board can look. The second one, non-teachers hourly, would come out of M&O, and it's 3%, not 2%, and let me explain to you why. Every January, or for the last couple Januaries, minimum wage has increased. Minimum wage just went up this January. In January of 27, it's going to go up again. If we do not provide any compensation increases, we will have a category of employees that would not be making minimum wage. We have to raise that for them anyway. 3% will give that threshold, but instead of waiting to January, I'd like to start that in July for those employees. 3% would give us above that threshold, and by applying it to everyone and not just the categories that would be affected, we would then allow that we would still on our salary schedule not allow it to be compressed, because if you only give to a few, then the salary schedule gets compressed, and more people with different roles would be playing a lot closer. So it's a lot more consistent if you give to everybody within that category, which would be the non-teachers and hourly. And finally, non-teachers salary and exempt employees would come out of M&O. These are the employees not eligible for a classroom side fund. 2% of that is about 170,000. And so you'll notice that the fund that it's coming out is different. One of them is the classroom site fund, where we have about $15 million in carry forward, and the other are coming from M&O, and that's where we have around the $19 million in carry forward. And I'll do a summary slide on the end that you guys have already seen in your review that puts all three of these options together. But that's the first option that we'd like to present. The second option is a $3.5 million reduction. Again, we can still continue to streamline different positions and be as efficient as possible as well within the district office as well as on sites. You'll notice minor changes to each group. The instructor and instructor support increases to 37 positions, where administration and administration support increases to 8.5 positions for the total of around $3.5 million reduction. Again, I left the compensation raises slide the same. Option 3 would be a $4.9 million reduction. And so from there, our instruction and teacher support would be raised to a number of 52 different positions, and non-teachers and administrative support would be at 11.5 positions, totaling up right around $4.9 million, which would be the reduction. Again, I left the compensation increases the same. So I think this slide here shows you a nice comparison, and I kind of want to walk you through where we get and what the implication would be of each one of these decisions. So if you look at the first column, option 1, we have an anticipated carry forward of around $19 million. Again, these are all estimates, but that's where we're estimating ourselves to be. The base support level increase, the state legislature, the minimum they can do is 2%. So we are anticipating a 2% increase to the base level support. That we're estimating that would provide for us an additional $1.9 million increase within an M&O. We know, judging from the slide earlier, that we need to reduce by about $7.8 million. $3 million from enrollment loss, $4.8 million from the override reduction. So when you add those together, it gets $7.8 million. If we reduce by $3 million, that means we would still need to cover about $4.8 million of a reduction. A pay increase adds to what we need to, what more we need to cover out of the carry forward. So as the example I used, it's $0.85 million, meaning, and this is the bolded number, we would need to take $5.65 million out of our carry forward to be able to cover that plan. So if you take the 19 and add the 1.9, that gives you $20.9 million carry forward plus the increase. Subtract the $5.65 million, and you're left with $15.25 million in carry forward, which means we are estimating at the end of next year, after we go through everything, we would have a carry forward of around $15.25 million. Each of the columns just represents the 3 different options. Option 2, then we would do more of a reduction by $500,000, which would mean that our carry forward would be higher. So you'll see the remaining carry forward after the reduction would be about $15.75 million. And then option 3, that would be the most reduction that we're proposing, the $4.9 million, which would mean out of carry forward, we would do $3.75 million, which would leave us a carry forward of around $17.15 million. That is just out of M&O. And we'd had minor discussions in the past when talking about this. What's the appropriate level of carry forward to have going forward? There are different levels that we can do. At the $17.15 million left over, that's still over 20% of our annual M&O budget that would be in carry forward. The bottom one, where it says CSF, that's the Classroom Site Fund. Right now, we have a $15 million surplus in there. After the pay increase, that would reduce it, that's a $0.9 million, that reduce it to about $14.1 million. So one of the questions that gets asked is this sustainable, right? Can we look at these raises? Can we look at some of the decisions we're making? Is it sustainable? From a classroom site fund, yes, there are multiple years. We know that it's going to continue to be funded, I believe, up through 2040. And so we know that we're still going to get income from the state from the state sales tax as well. So that will go into the 15 million and then we'll pay out after that. We do believe it's sustainable for multiple years. If you take a look at each of the other options, as we spend down the carry forward, it is sustainable, but it's not sustainable over 5 years. It's sustainable over a few years to allow us to do that reduction. And what we really are worried, or not worried, what we're working to get to is a point where if we have no override, then our balance and all we would do is be adjusting not for loss of override anymore, but just for our enrollment loss, anticipated enrollment loss. So is it sustainable within the short term, the next couple of years? Absolutely it is, if you take a look at where it's at. But ultimately, we would get to a point where we would say we can't go further than this point in our savings account. We can't get a further percentage. And I think that's important for people to understand, that when we talk about this fiscal responsibility, we're talking about, yes, we believe we can control this for the next 2 to 3 years, but there will become a point where we could not sustain out of our savings account anymore because we're spending more than we're taking in. And so these are the different 3 options that we had looked at and that I'd like to present to the governing board so that when we come back on the 27th, you guys will have an opportunity to think, do your research on what you'd like to do, and come in ready to make a decision on the 27th. With that, I'd like to open it up to any questions that you would have concerning the budget proposals.
Mr. Lotzenheiser, for clarification, we also can meet with you over the course of the next 2 weeks to discuss some of these things in terms of if we have follow-up questions or anything else that we might individually have, correct?
That is correct, to come in. And I know we already have one scheduled, and we'll be meeting tomorrow, and that's perfect. And to come in, and me and my team will be able to help answer questions, provide background, so then when you guys come back, you can still ask those same questions out in front of everyone, and we can have a discussion about where you would like to see. But really, when you came out at the 9th and said, hey, spend carry forward to cover some of these reductions, that allowed us to put some of these options together.
President Wade, Mr. Lotzenheiser, obviously, I want to lose the least amount of people and affect the least amount of programs possible, but I have a question. As a ballpark number, how many teachers leave us each year? And I know we've gotten the number, but do you have like an average?
You know, when we look at 29, I know it's greater than 29. I think last year, and I'll look at HR if I remember correctly, it was in the 90s. We hired 91 teachers last year over the course of the year. And so when we're taking a look at the reductions, all of these have reductions. We're anticipating that we will have attrition to be able to cover those, and we will cross that bridge if we do not have attrition in terms of what it looks like to do a reduction in force to make sure that we meet those needs. But typically, we have had to hire more than 29 or more than 36 or 37 positions. It's been close. It's, like I said, 91 last year.
So when we say that the reduction of 29, we wouldn't actually be letting people go. It would be.
We are hoping not to. Now,
I mean,
Higley is a wonderful place to work.
Crazy things that could happen, but on average, usually we lose
Correct.
that many. So.
But if people want to stay, then we would have to get into a position that, you know, that there might have to be some reductions, and we would come and discuss that with the governing board once we get to that point. So you're clear on the process we would use.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Oh, sorry. I just have one more thing. You said.
Sorry, I didn't.
You can go ahead. Okay, I just had one more thing. You said that we're working to work within our budget, right? As far as the loss of numbers. Still, though, after 2 to 3 years, we will, without an override, just to make it clear, that we would still have to cut programs and we would still have to.
At some point, we would get to the, yes.
I just want to make that clear,
After
'cause it
spending our
sounded like
carry
we
forward,
could
because right
still.
now our carry forward is, that's what's covering it, right? We save up for a rainy day and it's raining, okay? So yes, that can cover us, but at some point, we would get to the point where it could not be fiscally responsible for us to maintain things the way that they are, because we wouldn't have enough in savings to be able to handle catastrophic things that happen within the district. And so to be safe, we would do that. Do we have a few years that we can cover? Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
President Wade, thank you. So, thank you, Mr. Lotzenheiser. So if the, and I'm going to laugh as I say this because I've worked in Arizona too long, but if, for example, the legislature comes through with more than expected, maybe some of these 35 to 63.5 jobs could stay. They benefit our local economy, et cetera. If we can look at the first example, the one that talks about attrition, I think it's the least disruptive one. I just want to say that if any teachers know that they are leaving, the sooner that you can let people know, just so people understand, if every PE teacher in Higley retired this year, this just doesn't solve our problem. Sure, we probably would have, 29 something less teachers, but we need to have, enough first grade teachers. We need to have enough high school English teachers. So the sooner that anyone anticipates and knows that they are leaving, if you could let your supervisor know, to let HR know, that really does help with planning. As you go through attrition, what that means is sometimes, let's just say, for example, you had, I'm making this up, 60 kids, and for whatever reason, maybe the year started more, and there's 60 kids in a third grade. And you have 3 teachers, and it's 20. It just so happened. That's a magical unicorn number. That's not true, but just for the sake of argument. Then this coming year with attrition, I think we would have to say to ourselves, we're only going to have maybe 2 sections of that future 4th grade with 60 people. So we have to look at those things, which unfortunately means that some people that have taught at a school and have all the clothing and stuff that goes with a school may not be at the school that they want. These are just some of the realities that you face, but people can still work here. I think it's terrible. I think, have a good plan for volunteers first. There are people that may be unhappy at a campus. Identify those people and do everything we can to make a move. So I really like the idea of attrition. I think it's the least intrusive. And then I don't know if Mr. Lotzenheiser wants to hit Mr. Fields, Mr. Armstrong, Ms. Miller. What input have we received from any levels of staff about their preferences? Because unfortunately, they're probably looking at this number, and you see, what was it, 52 teachers. That's got to give some people some heart palpitations until we can give them more clarity. So have you guys had any feedback from people? Any suggestions about other ways that we could save money?
Our process is, again, when we looked at individual staff, we really use that meet and confer process where people have an opportunity through the HEA. HEA provides input for us as we have those discussions as well. We definitely had the surveys and things from last year, and I get the uncertainty, right? We know it. It's a reality for all of us. Right-sizing your district is really easy when you're growing, and it's really hard when you're not. And so that idea of the transfer and asking for volunteers, knowing that a grade level might have to go from 3 to 2 is actually something we've done in the elementaries for the past, I know 2 years, perhaps 3 years already we've gone through that, as some campuses are bigger and some campuses are smaller, and to be able to fit that. And I know Mr. Armstrong has that plan in place with the administrators already. And so, anyone that has an idea, I would encourage them to talk to their site supervisor and their principal if they're on the side, to then talk to one of us. I think that's a very important way that they can continue to talk to that and give ideas. I do, want you to know, like, we listen, we hear ideas and we go through them. And at the same time, ultimately, as a cabinet and myself as a superintendent, I'm the one that's going to be responsible for coming and giving you guys the options of what's moving forward. And that's a responsibility that we signed up when we came into leadership.
I appreciate the work and the time that it took to put these together. Because A, it's never fun and it never feels great. Obviously, we have a couple weeks of time before we get to decide how it is that we feel and gives us time to sit with this decision and those types of things. I do wish to make a statement for myself personally before next meeting. I also can't promise that I won't repeat that, so I apologize. In that, I've struggled for the 3 years that I have been on the board, much as I have struggled throughout my career in education, and that is getting people to understand what it is that we really do, getting people to understand what really takes place in the walls of a public education school, and getting people to understand what public education in this state faces and how that's different from other states. And even though that we are where we are with respect to financing and per pupil spending, we perform remarkably well, admirably so. It is hard to sustain a commitment to something when you feel as if you're screaming into a void and people just don't care, or people don't see, or people don't recognize what really is happening. I have, for the time that I've been on this board, worked really hard at making efforts to do what is best for long-term decisions with respect to this district. And I take that position seriously. It's what gives me anxiety, and when I sit up here making gagging noises all the time. This will not be easy. I'm not in the business of taking something that is doing well and messing it up. I struggle that we have a community that cannot see how remarkably lucky they are that they live where they live. It's hard for me to hear folks talk about public education in a way that is riddled with lies or not accurate for Higley. So let's remind ourselves of what our staff has done, even though we've had to tighten our belts or look at other things or make great changes as we feel with all of this, because we did not give raises last year. And yet we have an entire community of folks who were told that they weren't important enough or none of this matters and our kids don't matter enough to continue to make a payment towards their future. And I struggle with that. As we have talked, Mr. Lotzenheiser and I have expressed, at least in some form, I am resistant to doing something that does not set us up for long-term success. I look at our savings account and the idea that we have buildings that are old. We literally have today to fulfill the fact that 2 of our schools don't have, cooling towers because they're old. These are hard decisions to make because that's what savings is for. And we don't, again, seem to have folks recognize the validity of the things that it is that we are doing. I am with Mr. Glover in terms of I desire not to make a lot of things that will make drastic changes, but at the end of the day, if we are doing things right here in Higley, and by my estimation, if we have solutions that we can do to continue to do what we are doing, that seems like the choice to make when we are doing things as well as we are. Every single one of our schools is an A. That's remarkable. Our test scores continue to do well. And yes, we had dips like the rest of the world with respect to COVID and what that looked like, but at the end of the day, Higley keeps showing up, and ultimately that comes down to our staff. And so again, for the individuals that are here and those that are listening at home, it matters, you matter, this position matters. Nobody likes any of this. Right now, we don't have anything on the horizon in terms of an election for our override and what the future looks like. Obviously, we are going to have to do that. There is no way that we don't do that if we hope to continue to make Higley great. We might be able to wait for the next few years and we will take a hit at our savings and our buildings won't look as great and we will have to deal with some of these things like we have in the past. But ultimately, for our staff and our teachers, please keep doing what you are doing. Our students are showing the success and the growth of the effort and the time that you have taken to continue to do these things. Take time for you, breathe. For those of you who know what your future looks like, please dearly communicate those things, because at the end of the day, as far as a community, I agree with Mr. Lotzenheiser in that we absolutely have this, but we have this as a community mindset, and we have this as a group of folks who need to take care of each other. And that matters. And I appreciate the options that are presented to us for stuff that is not great. For those of you in the community who are listening and did not support our override because you said things like, we have this carry forward, well, then I will expect your vote the next time it's on the ballot. We won't have a choice. At the end of the day, we have done remarkable things, and we need to continue to do those remarkable things, and that requires a community to support it. And so I will continue to support our staff while they do all of these things, and I recognize that I am one of 5, and there are multiple options. But I will promise at the very least that I will continue to do that. What I am asking for is our community to do the same, to make hard choices, to make choices for the future of our children, whether that is yours or not. It's a community effort at the end of the day. And recognize that as of now, your staff, your teachers, and in all honesty, our students feel it. The number of kids who knew that there was a possibility of losing specials and everything else, all of this impacts them. So please, thank your teachers, thank your kids' teachers, remind them that they matter, remind them that the work that they do matters, because all of this is difficult for everybody who's participating.
Let's see. Sorry, I gotta scroll back up to my notes. I appreciate the fact that we have had this strong M&O carry forward that allows us to, it gives us time to make thoughtful decisions. Clearly not unlimited time, but it gives us time. At the same time, we are facing enrollment decline, and we need to keep in mind that we can't continue spending at the same level when enrollment is trending down. The carry forward, will help us manage that transition, but it doesn't eliminate the need that we have to make adjustments. M&O revenue is driven by ADM, and those cuts have to be made. Compensation, staffing, those are reoccurring costs. And the carry forward luckily allows us to be able to bridge that gap. But one thing I would like to know is how much of the salary budget that we currently have is tied to budgeted vacant positions versus filled positions?
So I don't have that number directly in front of me, but we can find that and have that for that discussion. I do know when we do, we call it vacancy savings, right? When we've budgeted for it, but it's not filled. The hard part with a teacher position, for instance, is while it's not filled, we still have to have a sub in there. So the vacancy savings is not the entire salary, but it's its entire salary minus the cost of the sub. Gets a little trickier when we get into SPED, because then we have to contract out, and typically they cost twice as much as a regular teacher does. So that doesn't help us within vacancy savings, but I'm more than happy to continue to look at those vacant positions. And I know that we tried to give you a summary in the information provided before, but we can continue to have that discussion.
That'd be great, just
Board
to get
Member
those.
Van Hook, sorry, I was going to ask too, can you include when you give that, the explanation of teacher versus SPED versus something else? So then that way, at least when we look at it, we know if it's a teacher position, that there's a sub that's filling it. If it's SPED, there may be some contracted thing or whatever, but rather than just a vacant position, having that would be helpful. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
So sorry,
we will
Ms.
try to
Van
do
Hook.
it as deep as dive as possible, and we can go through it, and if we want more, we'll go back and look for more. And
Yeah, just a breakdown of the different types of vacant positions versus, filled positions, also the dollar amount tied to it, and then a breakdown of what that equates to when it comes to benefits. And I believe we forecasted about 30% in benefits?
22. Go ahead.
Okay. And then looking ahead, as far as what our natural attrition is that we anticipate combined with the existing vacancies, and how much of that is required reduction that could be achieved before eliminating filled positions.
I completely agree with that. That's our goal, is that if there's a position that's unfilled, that would be a much better cut than it would be when have someone losing their job. I agree with that. So yes.
And yeah, I mean, my intent in this is to consider, vacancies, attrition, discretionary spending, and other non-personnel measures before going to the filled positions. And then also, considering other controls when it comes to possible travel freezes, or I know tonight we approved, I want to say approximately $20,000 in a Las Vegas trip. And I understand that, professional development is part of the job, but that's something that we also should look at, is any type of large travel freeze that could help us retain some of the funding. And then, of course, other types of discussions, such as our land, and I'm not sure why that's not part of the discussion. I think it should be, because that is a pretty large sum of money that we can consider in this process. But then when you look at the options that are provided to us, and doing an analysis between all three options, yes, the option 3 is the largest staffing reduction, but it also preserves the highest level of carry forward. And then from a fiduciary standpoint, it offers this, the strongest buffer with the enrollment shifts that we are seeing. And then, between state funding and then any type of unexpected cost increases, I would say that option 3 would be the safest option, and the least risky financially, but also treating 26, 27 as a transition year. This option also creates the largest immediate impact, but it's also the most financially conservative option. But that doesn't mean it's not consequence-free. And then as far as, option number 2, I think it's the least disruptive option operationally. It also balances the moderate reductions with the carry forward. So that's a safe option as well. But I think as far as option number 1, this is definitely the most, this option creates the longest financial risk that out of all the options that we have. And it's just something to consider when making those decisions. That's all. Thank you.
One thing I would like to remind again from this is the student loss, which we need to keep in mind each year. That's separate from the extra, in that as our student numbers continue to decrease, or if that continues to happen, we have to rebudget every year based off FTE. So that's something that always gets done regardless. And I know we've talked about it before, but I can't emphasize this enough. At the end of every school year, after the 100-day count, we figure out how many students it is that we have, and we have projections, and we ask the state for the amount of staff that we have projected to be there. And we have to prove it with numbers, because we can't just be like, we're going to have 1 million. And then they tell us how much FTE they're giving us, how many full-time teachers they're paying for, or staff in general, and then we have to appropriate accordingly. We have done this every year. We continue to do this every year. That's why on that chart, I don't know what page it is, but you have the little yellow section that's 3 million. I think that's important to keep in mind when we talk about what it is for budgets and where we can save and all of that, is that ADM loss is separate than figuring out where we can make up from the fact that the override didn't hit. Sorry, Mr. Armin, go ahead.
That's all right. Thank you so much, President Wade. Mr. Lotzenheiser, I just want to emphasize, just kind of echo what a few things have been said. Utilize that attrition. Travel freezes, that would be a great idea. Pay attention to professional development, see where we can rein in. Student programs, just really communicate, principals, everybody communicate with the parents and utilize those programs. If those programs are overwhelming their students, let's just reorganize them and make sure that they're really kind of getting that core curriculum. And so then that way we have those numbers more adequate, and we can count and plan on those teachers and such. There is a constant loss of enrollment, and so I really want to propel us as far forward. I think that we can't count on an override. So I really want to protect the safety and the long-term thing of the district, and just plan ahead and really kind of get as conservative, get really good in our area and in our budget. That's kind of the reality of life. We all have to balance our own budgets at home, so I just really want to utilize. I know it's kind of a hard thing to say and kind of frank to say, but I really want to make sure that we are covering our bases and that we don't rely necessarily on things that perhaps and I'm going to be frank, I am unbiased about certain things, but the reality of what we're seeing and how the voters are voting, I don't want to count on something and just have it not planned for it and have it not show up. So my goal is to really protect the district and really kind of get in that wiggle room that keeps the students, keeps the money there as long-term as we can. I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
Do you have something, or are we trying to move on? Okay, thanks. So option one for us, I think, gives us time to have discussions. I really would like for all the people that work here, send their kids here, et cetera, to find places that we can save and reorganize and find efficiencies. And I hope that we're open to any of those ideas that do that. I've seen a district, I was in one, that sort of rushed with great haste and riffed a bunch of people, told them they were going to be riffed. And as time went on, with the natural attrition that happened, all of those people that wanted to came back. But some had already left and to never, ever, ever return. And those things sting. And so the better job we can do without having to do that to people, the better off we will be long-term, because I want this to be a place where people send their kids and that the employees are also happy. And I also wanted to thank, we've already made some cuts last year, so I wanted to thank the people who are already doing more with less and will continue to do so. And, not to be Eeyore, but healthcare costs are going to, I haven't seen anyone that said healthcare costs are going down next year. So that's another thing that we're going to have to absorb as well.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Glover. Something else I would like to say, I'm struggling because it feels as if we're talking out of two sides out of our mouth sometimes, in that we know that we have ADM loss. We also talk about what can we do to make Higley be the place that people want to come to. How can we achieve both things at once? How can we make cuts to all the things that are good for us and cut all of these things while simultaneously being like, we're so great, keep coming in here? Like, I'm not disagreeing with you that of these options, they're not the best. And some of them put us in a little bit more of a financially strenuous situation, given the fact of the, a difference in 500,000 or 2 million, depending on which policies or plans we're talking about. But two things cannot be true. We cannot exist in this world and continue to do the things that we are doing without money to accomplish those things. So like I struggle. If somebody has the answer, if somebody's sitting at home and being like, yes, these are the things, then please tell me, because I don't see how these things can coexist. If we're sitting here saying we need to figure out how to capture more families in our district, how to take those numbers of people who aren't coming here, how do we do that? On hopes and dreams? Like, something has to give. There has to be some sort of logic that gets put in here in that we exist in the real world. I get that we are a government entity and we are not a private business, and we are beholden to so many different things that regular folks don't even really understand. But yet at the end of the day, we still have to work with real people, with real money, and exist in this real space. And so if we want to continue to say, Higley is great, we care about you as a staff, which to Mr. Glover's point, absolutely. I can tell you the last time we riffed, what kind of staff you get in its place. And it's not great. It's not. And I can tell you what happens when you don't support staff. There are business models that talk about how great these businesses are when you recognize how important the staff is. And at the end of the day, when we talk about students and what things are sexy to families to bring families in here, again, those cost money. So do we go, okay, it seems to be that the community isn't supporting us? Because I agree with you. Some of that is misinformation. I would love more than anything to spend some time to talk about community with it, where we aren't restricted by laws in certain ways, to say, hey, let's actually talk about transparency and what it is that we show in our performances here, because we do more than pretty much everywhere else in the Valley, I can tell you that much. And at the end of the day, if we're still saying, how do we accomplish these, how do we do it? How do we say, we need you here if we're cutting, these things don't make sense to me. So I go, what path are we on? Are we on a situation in which we say we're trying to do what's best long-term for Higley, and that includes growth, that includes capture? Then you have to focus on the programs that exist. And so as we continue with these next 2 weeks, and I hope we all schedule the meeting so we can have conversations, so we know the differences, because I think, Ms. Van Hook, to your point, the questions that we're gonna get this week in terms of the details of that, they matter when it comes to the decision between making 1 versus 2 or 2 versus 3. But again, we have to keep in mind, you cannot expect to accomplish these things that we are beholden to while cutting everything out from under us. Those two things do not connect, or at least somebody can tell me what I am missing, because I don't see it, and I don't understand how that works.
President Wade, I think we're doing that partially here by preventing our programs from being cut. That helps retain our families that are interested in those programs, because that was a huge concern. But throughout the 3 years that I've been on this board, I have said from the dais that there are concerns that our community members have, based on votes being made, based on decisions being made by the majority of this board, that causes parents not to trust or would prefer to go elsewhere. And changes in that aspect have not been made. And that, I think, that is what needs to change if we want to continue to preserve families and be able to attract more families. And from the people that I talk to on a daily basis, that is a big concern. And unless we are willing to make those changes, then we can continue to see families either not trusting us and pulling their kids, or just making other options versus picking our district. So we have to be able to change in that aspect, and that doesn't require money.
Again, if you are one of those families that feel that way, please reach out. I would like to remind in the last 3 years that we have had that, we have now all of our schools that are A's. We have also routinely improved our test scores and have continued to be above our neighbors and counterparts with respect to those things. So as far as the areas and the issues that we have that we are not going to be able to please everybody, I wholeheartedly understand that. But I do think it's important to keep in mind what we have and what we're doing. For those in the community that feel some kind of way about it or have ideas, please feel free to reach out. Those things matter and how you express it, because I think the next couple of years, I agree, we all need to figure some stuff out as we decide what steps we take and what efforts we can make, for sure. Thank you, Mr. Lotzenheiser. This brings us to, assuming everybody else is good? No? Yep. Go ahead.
I just want to thank the admin. This is a lot of work, and I know that it's you guys are the ones in the weeds, and honestly, you're the ones that have to, be the bearer of bad news sometimes, and I really appreciate all the efforts you guys do and all the brainstorming and the ideas you're coming in and bringing to the table. I really, I've learned a lot on how this district is run and how, since we are a smaller district, we aren't privy to certain things that larger districts have. And so sometimes we can be paying more with our funds. So I appreciate all the voices on this dais, because there is truth in multiple viewpoints. And so I really appreciate the efforts that everybody does. So thank you. .
6.2, first review of 2026-2027 maintenance and operation budget. Ms. Rushkamp.
President Wade, members of the board, tonight we are going to take our first review of the fiscal year 2027 M&O maintenance and operations budget. This will begin July 1, 2026. So this is a familiar slide that we have seen, the cycle of our budgets and the timelines. So in May 2026, we will be doing our second budget revision for this current year, which is 2026. We will, statutorily, we have to have a budget reviewed by May 15th, so we will do that on May 5th. And that will determine for 26, then rolling into 27, which we will look at the 2027 first budget. That will be on June 2nd. That will be our proposed budget. Then on June 23rd, that will be our adopted budget. Typically, there's very little change between those two. The only change would be if something if the budget was settled with the legislature and there was a big change. And then for December, if necessary, we will look at our first revision. So a couple of the things we know, as everybody has mentioned, these right now are estimates. So these are a couple things that we do know at this time, or we are estimating. So the aggregate expenditure limit, that is something we look at each year. We know we are covered for right now, but again, as Superintendent Lotzenheiser mentioned, it's about $15.5 million for our district that we could have the potential to lose if that went away. We also know we have had about a 300 student decline each year, so we have to account for that right off the top. Right size our schools. We also know historically we have been receiving a 2% inflation adjustment to the base support level, so what we receive per ADM. That is the minimum amount that we can receive. Historically, inflation in the state of Arizona has been higher than that. School districts just have never received higher than the 2%. We also know we will have the reduction to the override of about $4.8 million, which we have been mentioning. And then the Arizona State Retirement System, there will be a very small decrease going into next year. We're going from 12% down to 11.98%. That affects both the district and the employees, both, so. And then each year from M&O, we transfer over to capital to pay for our middle school leases. Historically, we've been transferring 3.55 million. Going into next year, we're looking at cutting that transfer down slightly, 3.25 million coming from M&O to capital. Capital is a fund that with the interest we do receive from the treasurer, we can spend that interest, so we can utilize some of the interest that we are generating in the DAA capital fund to help offset the cost of the middle school lease payments. So last month on December 9th, we looked at our current year 26 budget and revised that for the additional loss of students that we had had since we had adopted in June. There's the 3.55 million we're transferring this current year. And we came in with 21.8 million in our budget balance carry forward. And again, as I had mentioned at that time, part of the reason that was higher was because we had received some additional funds. We had put some funds in DAA capital where ADE placed them in M&O, so that increased that. So going into 27, we are projecting, and this is an unweighted 300 ADM Group A, so that would be our preschool through 12 students. If we weight that out, that comes to about 351 students. Then our Group B weight, so again, that is our gifted, our special ed, all the different categories we have there. We have free and reduced, K3. We are projecting about 292 loss that is weighted, decrease there. For the override phase down, as we have been talking about, and Superintendent Lotzenheiser just mentioned in his presentation, 4.8 million loss. And then again, transferring from M&O to capital, 3.25 million. With that being said, we are anticipating right now carrying over about 19 million. We had been saying 17 million, that's what we were saying back in June, but again, got the little bit of extra funds coming in our December revision, and then also the spending has, we've been very careful with our spending this year, knowing the override was phasing down again. So our projected budget for 27 is just under 111 million. It's 110,992. Taking that away from what we revised in December, the 118 million, that gives us a loss of about $7.876 million. For our fixed cost changes, these right now are still all to be determined. We're working on them. We do not have numbers yet from our insurance for our property and liability. Health insurance, we have been told, will be going up. We're just not sure to what percentage that is going to increase. Work comp also could have the potential of going up if we did have staff reductions. Utilities, those go up annually. We know we are in the town of Gilbert, so we know we will have increase for water. And then our department and school budgets for this current year that we're in right now, 26, we did a pretty deep reduction on them. So we will pretty much hold steady with those. The schools, they fluctuate with their ADM because it's based on ADM. So again, our ADM went down this year. Their budgets will reduce a little bit next year, just for that.
Ms. Rushkamp, I'm sorry, do you have an idea on when we'll get the answers to some of these? Like when we're expected to know about the health insurance and all that?
Well, so next meeting in January, we will have numbers in here. Will they be 100%? No. I know the trust is meeting, their board meets in February, so probably mid-February, we will get an idea from them. We will be meeting with our health insurance with Kairos next week, so we will get a little more information there. Utilities, right now, I'm projecting 300 to 350 that it will go up. So, and right now it's about 5 million, so it'll go up to about 5.35 million. So for our timeline for reviewing M&O and then also capital, at our next meeting, which will be in 2 weeks, we will have the second review. Again, mainly what we'll see on that review will be plugging in some of these numbers that are the to be determined numbers. We will also finalize what the budget reductions due to enrollment loss and then the override phase down will look like. And then on March 3rd, we will have our third and final review of the M&O budget in hopes to have tentative approval so that contracts can be sent out after March 15th. April 7th, we will take our first look at the DAA, our capital budgets. And then on May 5th, we will have our second and final review for capital, and that will be so we can have tentative approval to send out purchase orders for long lead time items that we would like to get started over the summer while the students are gone. And with that, I could take any questions.
President Wade, with the interest rates going down, is there any opportunity for us to do another refinance on these leases? I don't know what the current interest rate is, but it's something to consider for savings.
It is, and just today, Superintendent Latzenheiser and I have got a meeting on our calendar to meet with Stiefel, who we will be looking to see, can we refinance our bonds? Is it at a point now where it would make sense for us to save? Yes.
And I don't expect you to know this answer, but I'm guessing the last time we refinanced, what the cost of that refi was, if any?
There is a cost. Exactly what that was, I don't know, but you definitely, it's just like your home. You have to outweigh, are the benefits going to outweigh the cost? Yes, and that's what our financial advisors will help us with.
Perfect. And then the 19 million carry forward on page 4, does that include the proposed salary increases and the revisions, estimated revisions for 27, 28?
So this is just where we're expecting to end this current year, 26. So we have $118 million to spend. Of all of that, we're anticipating carrying about, not spending about 19 million of that.
Okay, so no salary increases included.
Not for next year.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Go.
President Wade, Ms. Rushkamp, can you expand on what that lease is? This was nothing I really heard about before. Can you expand what that lease is so the district kind of understands kind of what the monies are going for and how, and just what that entails?
Sure. So back, it was around 2016, 17, we built a couple of leases that or a couple of the 2 middle schools that we have, so Sossaman and Cooley, and we were leasing those buildings, and we have been making payments. The payments were set to run till about 2050, 2051. When Mr. Moore was here, he had looked into refinancing those and then bringing them from the current, who we were paying, the lease, we were bringing those into refinancing them to try to get those costs down, which we were able to do. However, it is still something we will be paying for 20-some years, yeah, that much money. So yeah, they will be very expensive middle schools when we're done.
Okay,
paying for
thank
them.
you so much, because I think that's helpful information to know. And we all know Gilbert's utilities go up, et cetera, insurance, health insurance, these are all things that we feel. So I really want people to understand that, you know, and kind of see the clarity that for the most part, the district is very judicious in its spending, and all the monies and the taxes that are, thank you, because it is going to a good cause. And so I really love that these numbers really show kind of the expenses of the district, so people really have an idea what their monies are going towards, and the reality, like we all live this reality. Inflation, things go up, these expenses go up. So just that way they have an idea where things are going towards.
All right, no further questions or comments. Thank you, Ms. Rushkamp. This brings us to 6.3 GDFA, support staff qualifications and requirements. First read, Ms. Johnson.
And I am going to ask that our legal counsel talk with any questions. This is just first read. I'm going to turn it over to you, Carrie.
All right, Madam President, board members, policy GDFA is your classified staff member fingerprinting requirements. And so this is intended to conform to the changes in 15.512. So 15.512 talks about who's required to get a background check and fingerprint requirements. So candidly, if you read 15.512, it is very confusing. And so the policy as it was drafted by your policy group was a little confusing, so we made some changes to try to streamline that. So it's clear that, for example, if a parent wants to go on a overnight field trip, they're still required to get a fingerprint clearance card. So we are complying with the state law, but the district's requirements exceed state law requirements. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'm just curious why we have, I know we'll be talking about the next policy for professional staff, but I'm just wondering why we have two separate policies regarding fingerprinting instead of having one that just says anybody who comes into contact with students requires fingerprinting.
Member Van Hook, that certainly is an option. The way your policies are organized, so Chapter G is all personnel, and then just organizationally, policies that are GC generally have to do with certified staff members, and GD have to do with classified staff members. It's simply just the way they're organized. You don't have to have it that way. It's just that's the way the policies were written.
So we do have the ability to consolidate the two into one, or do you recommend that we keep them separate?
That's a good question. So, I mean, there's nothing that prohibits the board from consolidating them into one, and that would be an option. It would just be, we'd have to make sure that they were linked, because right now, all the certified policies are in that GC section, and all the classified policies are in GD, so we'd have to make sure the references were correctly linked.
Okay. And then on the policy, let me just find the page. At the bottom of page 2, it looks like. Yes, where it says if the district, so it says if the district does not require fingerprint clearance card as a condition of employment, employees may still apply for a fingerprint clearance card. I'm not sure why the district wouldn't require this, and I feel like this language conflicts with universal safety standards, and then it creates like a discretionary exemption that's not supported by statute.
President Wade, Member Van Hook, I'll answer that question. That paragraph would reference a Tier 1 volunteer who is constantly supervised by a teacher or other personnel. That would be the only person that would not need a fingerprint card in our district.
Can we specify that in that sentence? Just outline Tier 1 versus saying you know, just making it such a universal sentence.
Member Van Hook, board members, sure, we can go back and make that change for second read to make it clear.
Perfect, thank you. And I think I have one more, and this would be on the last page. Oh, maybe not. After AB. I was, I added it on my notes, but after AB, if, or maybe a different spot in the policy, but just to say pursuant to 15509, any individual who applies for employment with the district shall disclose to the district at the time of application whether the individual has pled guilty or no contest, or has been convicted, or is awaiting trial of any offense identified in 15509. An applicant's knowing failure to make a required disclosure constitutes a violation of state law and may result in disqualification from employment, and that comes from the statute.
Member Van Hook, we can certainly make that clear in the policy.
Thank you. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
President Wade, I'm under the impression that the district really complies, goes above and beyond the standard. And so in a way, we're just kind of updating and doing the wording to match the way the district's been operating in general. I fully agree with those added things that Board Member Van Hook. We really want to make sure that we know who we're getting in the district and really protect the safety and security of the students. So yes, and I love that people who are awaiting trial, all that stuff is good lingo to have in there just to ensure and give us more clout and more teeth in our hiring process. So I really, please look into that. Thank you.
President Wade, I have one more thing. Would there be, I added no administrator and supervisor may waive the fingerprint clearance requirement except as expressly permitted by state law. Now, I'm trying to understand, like, what situation would there be for them to be able to waive a fingerprint card?
Member Van Hook, could you tell me where that is in the policy?
It's something I added.
Oh,
After that, where I said if we can clarify tier 1, I added it after that just to state that no administrator or supervisor may waive the fingerprint clearance requirement except as expressly permitted by state law. And I didn't see anything in the state law that says you can.
right. I don't think you would want any administrator, you wouldn't want to give an administrator discretion to waive that, right? No.
Correct. I want, there's a reason why I added it, and let me look for.
Ms. Van Hook, considering this as a first read, is that something you can look up and we can communicate for later? Because I agree.
I'm just doing a
No is
quick
the
search
answer to
in the
that.
actual policy. Yeah, it's not in there. So there's nothing in the statute that says they can. So I don't know if it's necessary to add that or just to cover our basis to be able to say you can't. Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much.
President Wade, I do want to make sure, in a lot of my training, there's different, databases, and I just want to emphasize that we're cross-referencing when we go to hire, that we're utilizing all the different resources that we can, because some people move states, some people kind of try to get out of their, their history, their past, and that you guys are able to access all that. and that you put forth that strong effort. Okay, also, some people who, if it's hired third-party, offerings from different businesses, et cetera, we're also able to trump that and make sure that we know exactly who we're getting, basically. Can you expand on that?
President Wade, Member Jarman. We do extensive background checks as well as the fingerprint card, and any third-party vendor has to provide that information as well to us if they're providing an employee. So we are doing due diligence in that area.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Although we're going right back to you with 6.4, GCFC, professional staff certification and credentialing requirements, first read. Ms. Johnson.
All right, you get me again. So, board members, this is again, the certificated employees. And so this is intended to just bring into compliance the exception when the district could allow someone with a expired fingerprint card to begin working in a classroom. And so this is just recommended by your policy body. I'm happy to answer any questions.
What controls do we currently have to follow up and verify that they've actually renewed it?
Yes, Board Member President Wade, Member Van Hook, as far as the IVP card or fingerprint card is concerned for a certified staff member, if it's in good standing, we can consult with the Department of Public Safety and verify the status of the card. So what the card does, just for your knowledge, is that once they're fingerprinted, they go into a database, and then if there's a crime committed that would violate the terms and conditions of the IVP card after, it reports back up to the database with the DPS. And so we have access to that. And so that's the perk of having that relationship with the IVP card. Because if you have traditional fingerprinting, that's going backwards in time. If somebody rolls their fingerprint, and maybe you guys have done that before for some circumstance or another, that's checking to see if that person's fingerprints showed up anywhere before. Where with an IVP card, it's checking to see if it shows up before, but then it maintains that for 7 years after. And so that's why if they leave and come back, the fingerprint card's still going to be in good standing, and we can verify that information with DPS. But any and all employees must be fingerprinted before working for us, whether that's support staff or certified staff, and that is a condition of employment for our school district.
I know there's language in here about the 90-day affidavit period. I'm just wondering, like, those that come in and have this expired card, and then they have 90 days to renew it. My question is there a process in place that ensures that they actually renewed it?
Yeah, there is for everybody, not just the renewals, but also the expiration of the cards, is our HR team tracks that for everybody, for fingerprint clearance and also for certification. And so they're given a 6-month heads up that either they're about to expire, or if they've been expired and if they can't produce it, then they can't work. And so that's tracked for any and all employee.
Perfect,
Yep.
Thank you. And then it also says that the superintendent shall develop and implement procedures as part of, like, once this is updated, is the superintendent's procedures for fingerprinting and DPS checks all current, or do those get updated as well?
Yeah, our procedures are constantly being reevaluated, so we actually go above and beyond, and we do not just a fingerprint clearance, but we do a background check on employees, which is not required. And so we also have that as well. And so anybody upon hire, before they start, we have to have that cleared ahead of time.
Okay. And that includes, like, contractors, anybody that
works with kids, anybody who's on a campus. And so we have a mechanism through our maintenance and construction department. If they're contracting for a construction job, like when they built the addition to Higley High School, all the team members on the construction team had to have an IVP card as terms of conditions of working for that contract to work at the school.
Great, thank you.
And we also have the Raptor check-in as well. So we have another extra layer when somebody comes in as well. So if it's not just for an employee, but for visitors as well, there's multiple layers to have an idea of who's on our campuses and why.
And when we have like contractors, did they have to go through the front office, or did they just like go into the contracting area site?
It's relative to the job and to the terms and the length of the job. If it's a one-off thing, if they're coming to check one thing out, then they check in at the front. If they're going to be on site for 6 months, then there's other terms that we put in place for that as well.
Thank you.
Madam President and board members, could I just point out one other thing? The obligation to have a valid fingerprint clearance card is in every certified employee's contract. And so while this policy is permissive, you still have that contract language to fall back on if the district does not want to exercise that option.
Also, as an aside, I'm grateful to the individuals in HR when they email you to let you know that stuff's coming up. It's always real helpful, so thanks. This brings us to 6.5. There are no other questions, yes? Great. Proposed 2026-2027 board meeting dates. Mr. Lotzenheiser.
President Wade, members of the board, we'd like to get our proposed dates for 26-27 school year approved. So this will be an information item with approval next meeting, just so we can start getting them on everyone's calendars. You'll notice, I believe we added 3 additional days because I felt like sometimes during this year, there was such a gap between meetings that I felt like some of the times we could come bring anything in the measure of time. Sometimes when we tried to put everything on there, then we knew that we would be here for 4 or 5 hours. So I'd like to have a couple additional meetings. Plus, if we agree that if we start looking at perhaps the trust model policies or other things where we'd like to come in to do some changes that would require more time, that we'd have those options already built in to having additional dates. And so if you take a look, these are the proposed dates. The biggest concerned one that I had, honestly, is October 13th. October 13th is during fall break. The limitation on that is by October 15th, please correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Rushkamp, that's when we have to have the final budget from this current year approved and submitted. And so we need all the time we can to reconcile our books, to bring it forward to be included, because it has to be turned in by October 15th. And so that's why we have a date that it would be during fall break. I know this has happened before. We try not to do it. However, with how the calendar aligns, we would look for an October 13th date. To move it up 2 weeks would put a lot of continued burden on our finance department to get that done, because there's a lot of work that goes into reconciling our books to make sure that our budget is done by that date.
Do we have any questions or comments from the board before we move on?
I do. I'm not sure if maybe it just hasn't felt like it before, but like with this one, it feels like there's more meetings that are every 2 weeks.
Yeah, we added 3 meetings to the.
Okay.
If you were to look at the current years, school years, and this one, there would be 3 additional meetings that have been added.
Got it, okay.
Yes.
So I wasn't.
Yeah, it just felt like
imagining.
because of breaks and something, like sometimes it's like I'll see in 5 weeks kind of thing, and
Yeah.
more regular occurrences I think would be better.
Got it, okay, yeah, because there's 2 or 3 weeks apart, and it just seemed like it was quite a bit. Let's see. The August, one request that I have is the August 25th meeting, if we can move that to either the 18th or the 1st. And that's just for personal reasons, because I will be out of town, and if everybody's willing to make that change. And then there is, as you mentioned, the October 13th meeting. So you're saying that we can't move that to the 20th, and then we can't move it up.
Yeah, Board Member Van Hook, we can't move it back because we have to approve it before the 15th. That's the date, October 15th. And if we were to move it up to the 29th, that 2 weeks is huge for our finance department in order to finish that year. And so we really do need that time. And so I know that even though it's a break from school, that we would have to have, a meeting there. I know in the past, we've had to have meetings when board members are on vacation and they've called in. I know that's not the most ideal, but we get it. You're with your family and you're out there, but we have done that in order to be able to meet that demand. And it's really, we want to do the very best job of reconciling and getting our books exactly right, and the finance department and moving through it, and all of the work that they do to finalize that. We do need that time instead of going before.
And so that's different than a typical 2-week meeting because there's more involved that has to be added.
It's just the work ahead of them, because they start reconciling starting July 1. So if Ms. Rushkamp, if you want to jump in, about why that deadline and the October 15th deadline
Yeah,
is
I'm just trying to
important.
understand what the difference is between that versus any other meeting that's 2 weeks apart.
So by October 15th, that's when we have to have the AFR, the annual financial report. We have to bring that to the board. And again, it has to statutorily be done by October 15th. And because we're still posting journal entries, because we're allowed to pay till August 29th, and then you're still posting journal entries after that, it would be difficult to accurately get everything by September 29th. What most likely would happen we would bring an AFR to you, and then we would revise the AFR, because we would still have changes with grants and things to make. So.
Okay.
May I make a suggestion? Like, you probably bringing your kids on vacation during break, right? So we could have a meeting in late September and early October that does all the other longer business and that people could be here for, and then we could dedicate a meeting in October solely to budget, and then if people weren't here or wanted to call in, that might be something to consider. We don't have to decide that right now. I mean, we could make changes down the road, but that might make things a little bit easier. So it's just a meeting solely for budget, and boom.
That'd be great. And then the other one is the November 3rd meeting falls on Election Day. And just my concern is community participation. And then, I don't know what Election Day is going to look like. And so, whether it's people showing up in person or being able to watch online, I rather not do it on that day and possibly move it to the 27th.
That's a possibility. I mean, I don't know. I think when we looked at it in terms of where we're at, again, I think that November one is an additional one we added because we went from the middle October to the middle of November this year, and that was a long movement. So we can look at that when we bring it back for approval. If that's something that everyone wants to agree to when we go for that approval, we can do that.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Dorman.
Yeah, so maybe if we can potentially consolidate that November meeting, that's totally fine, or, I like that idea. And then June, obviously, we need those two boards, don't we?
We do. We come in that June 29th, I believe, is where we approve the budget for the year. Hopefully the state budget's funded by then, so we know exactly what our funding is by then as well.
Okay, perfect. And then also what Board Member Glover mentioned about potentially just utilizing the other option just to make sure we're on point with Sharon. And then that way we could potentially have a little bit more flexibility if she's kind of those journal entries are running later than what she anticipated. I really like that idea to help her, help us.
All right, thank you. This brings us to action item 7.1, approval of memorandum of understanding between Higley Unified School District and Grad Solutions. Any questions or comments from the board before I motion?
President Wade, yes. So I asked to pull this out of consent because clearly the agreement is sharing, about sharing student information. And let me just get it opened here. data sharing. And with ARS 15-142, that requires parental consent before, I just lost the word, before any information such as, phone numbers, student emails, and address and things, directory information. That's the word I was looking for. And so I'm concerned that this might somehow violate this new statute with the sharing of student information. And so ahead of time, if we as a board are approving these, we're overriding the rights of parents to be able to opt out of data sharing.
President, Board Member Van Hook, I can refer to Mr. Fields, who's put this together and looked at it. Just from a big picture, just so you understand what Grad Solutions is or what it does, is it is an organization that helps support kids when they drop out, right? When they withdraw, and a lot of times these are students that have exhausted all the resources we can and have not been successful for us. How else can we continue to support the students in going forward to try and get their high school diploma? And so I know that we've met with Grad Solutions. Informally, we've had some kids go to them already, because where else can they go and help find? And we'd like to formalize this to help go through our W lists to help them and truly focus on helping the students. But Mr. Fields, if you can have any clarity or moving forward with that conversation.
So the law does allow for sharing when there's a legitimate educational interest between educational entities within the student's interest. So with these withdrawal students, these are students that have withdrawn for us. For Higley Unified, it's a very small number. Remember, we have a 98% plus graduation rate, so we're talking less than 20 students annually that would qualify for these services that by withdrawing from our school. They cannot be enrolled currently in any Arizona school. They must be a resident and not enrolled in a public school or a charter schools currently. So the educational interest of getting a diploma would be the reason for sharing the data and sharing that contact information, so that Grad Solutions could then reach out to them and offer their services as a potential for these students to earn their diploma if they're still living in Arizona. Sometimes kids withdraw or become on that withdrawal list and they've actually left the state, which is why it would be less than 20 students, or they enrolled somewhere in some other program and haven't given us that information. So it's actually less than 20 students. But if they're still here in Arizona, it's a positive aspect to the community that they earn their high school diploma.
And
Board Member Van Hook, and we did have this vetted through our attorneys, and Mrs. O'Brien just pointed out Section 7 on it, which is standard of care. And it says the parties, their employees, and agents shall comply with applicable federal and state laws pertaining to maintenance and disclosure of student records, including, I won't read all of it, but you can see it down there on the bottom on 7. So that would meet that requirement to make sure that we are sharing data with them appropriately. So that can help. So that's built into it already.
okay.
Okay, so that hopefully helps alleviate that concern.
Perfect. And then, so we currently don't utilize any service like this, and we haven't attempted to, in the past, help students in this situation.
No, we have not.
Okay. And
These
then,
are students who have left us, right? Because they're
Students
withdrawn,
that
so they wouldn't
have
be.
withdrawn from Higley Unified School District.
right. And then one of the answers that was provided that there is no cost to the district. And I'm just curious, like, how does Grad Solutions make money if districts aren't paying for the service?
So I would assume they receive funding from the state.
To do that, okay,
I can answer that.
please.
Member Van Hook. So there's a specific state law for dropout recovery programs where they have a lower number of hours they have to provide to students that are in this circumstance in order to get ADM. So they're like another educational entity for those children.
Great. All right, thank you.
President Wade, Mr. Fields, is there a parental opt-out? Like, are parents notified of this if their students?
So it's my understanding when we share the information, Grad Solutions reaches out to the parents and to the students, and they work with the families together. The students are not required to join or be a part of this. It's simply sharing that information so they can reach out and provide that additional assistance, and so parents would be included.
Okay, I appreciate that. Before, when parents kind of sign up, are they notified that, you know, the potential of dropping out, that the names will be shared?
I don't think that we have that built in, that potentially we would share the names with them already. That would be when Grad Solutions reaches out to these people who have left our district already.
Okay, I appreciate it.
That does kind of bring up another question. So for instance, when a student is enrolled at the beginning of the school year, parents opt out on the online portal, opt out of data sharing. Does that impact, and then let's say their kid halfway through the year decides to drop out. So do you utilize what they input into the system?
Okay. So FERPA, federal law around data privacy, allows for that opt-out at the beginning of each year for directory information, right? And directory information is the information that the district's designated as harmless to release. For example, name, address, dates of enrollment, athletic participation, honors, and awards. And then now on top of that, we have this new state law. So you have the opt-out federally and then an opt-in for, I believe it's name and address.
An email, yeah.
Yeah. And so school districts are trying to figure that out. Some school districts have eliminated from directory information those elements in order to, it just gets really confusing for families on what am I opting out of and what am I opting in to. But I can certainly work with the district to make sure that both, you know, federal and state law compliance occurs in the data sharing.
That'd be great. Thank you.
That would be great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between Higley Unified School District and Grad Solutions.
Second.
That would be Ms. Schultz seconding. Oh, I almost said all those in favor, but we're going to have our little window for us. Look at that. Please vote, everybody. Did everybody vote? I didn't get a little something. Ms. Zimmerman, did everybody vote? I have no window that popped up and let me know. Oh, did it kick you out? No worries, you're fine. It's kicked me out like 4 times. Okay. Motion carries, in case anybody was sitting on the edge of their seats for that one. Sorry. Oh, this brings us to future agenda items. Does anybody have any requests for future agenda items?
Madam President. Ms. O'Brien, this is probably going to be more for you. So board members, we have to follow policy and procedure, and no one should be above the law, so to speak. So we have to set a good example for others that we follow the policies that we make. Recently, a board member allegedly brought some books to a school to be given to students, which is a nice gesture, thank you, but policies weren't followed. So future agenda items, we have a policy for distributing information by outside organizations, like say a flag football organization wants us to hand out their registration flyers. Was that followed? Do we need to review that policy? Is it policy, or do we need to create a new one to confer with the superintendent before a board member distributes materials to campus? We also have a policy for accepting gifts and donations. Was that followed? Do we need a review of that policy? There is also state law requiring that books be put on display before putting them in libraries in the hands of students. Would that action have violated that law, or does that even apply to any of what was done? And then there are people in and around our community that we're misusing the term electioneering this past election, is giving a book and getting it into the hands of, into the households of voters that is authored by not a current office holder, but someone running for office. Is that electioneering? And lastly, if we do determine that a board member has violated or not followed a policy, what repercussions do we have? So with the permission of our board president, I'd like to request that that be placed on the agenda, some of those things be placed on our agenda at our next meeting. Thank you.
Did you get all of that, everybody? Or do you want him to send to you what he? All right, great, good talk.
Yeah, please send that question to me, and/or I'll review the tape on half speed, and I'll be able to write those things down. Thank you.
Okay, are we, all right. I motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
I'm going to give that to Ms. Schultz because she barely beat you, Ms. German. Oh, wait, oh, we're gonna, there we go. Motion carries 5-0. Have a lovely night, everybody. Drive safe.
Good night.